Welcome back to Unpacking Me, the parts of healing no one talks about. In today's episode, we're going deeper into the ripple effect of emotional invalidation. Last time we unpacked the message that emotions and feelings are not valid. Today, we're stepping into the next layer, my distorted sense of being. I'm your host, Nikki Cameron.
I'm your host, Murnell St. Jean.
And let's just dive right in. What do we mean by a distorted sense of being? Unfortunately, something that emerges or a situation that emerges quite often during therapy is individuals struggling to figure out who they are and what I mean when I say, who are you at your core, yourself, your being?
Mm-hmm.
And so, distorted sense of being is when we live through the identity that was created for us, that was given to us, when we are who we've been told we should be since childhood, since school, since college, and even now, maybe even in religious settings. It's manufactured, maybe it's silenced, or it's borrowed. Have you ever felt like you're playing a role, performing rather than living your truth? Have you ever felt like you're not sure what version of yourself you are? Well, instead of asking, what do I want? You often ask, what do they want from me? What will they think? How might they see me? It's a survival strategy, but one that slowly disconnects you from your core self. And it is crucial for us to pause with you and reflect on who you are. Did you know that it is your birthright to create the version of you, the you that you want to be, with all your traits, your personality, your view of self? Yes, it is your birthright. But if all you've ever been told is who you should be, then unfortunately, you might not know who you are. And so, how you are showing up now might just be distorted, blurred by who people want you to be, who you think you should be, and not really who you are at heart. So let's take a step back and look at how you've been showing up and how you've been invalidating yourself just to be who you've been told you need to be in this world. And Myrnell, I'm dragging you in on this. How do we distort ourselves? Where did this come from? This distortion that many of us have been latching on to.
Oh my goodness. And this is a topic that is, I've been here. I once upon a time struggled with a distorted sense of self. And so understanding how I got there was very important for me to understand how to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the way that we get there is in our childhood being invalidated. And what does that look like with our feelings, our dreams, or when we are in an experience in childhood when our uniqueness is dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can remember countless experiences where I tried to be myself and I was told you can't do that. You can't be this person. And consistently being invalidated. Over a period of time, it distort your sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's trauma or abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think people understand that trauma it plays an important role when it comes to our sense of self. Because we can then learn to shrink ourselves to stay safe when trauma shows up or abandonment shows up. We learn to shrink to stay safe, and that distorts our sense of self. Then there's the over identification with roles. What that looks like is I want to be a good daughter. I used to always say I'm a good daughter. And that was one of the roles that I play. And when we're playing the strong one or the fixer
Or the
or
cool
the cool,
guy, or the good son.
we're what that's a distorted sense of self, because then those titles oftentimes come with a sacrifice of the self
Hmm.
so that we can continue playing that role. If you're playing the good daughter, then what happens when your opinion differs from that of your parent? Are you a bad daughter then? So we oftentimes sacrifice a part of ourselves so that we can continue to over identify with the roles that we play. And then there's messages like you're too much, being told you're not enough, being told who do you think you are, being told I made you.
Yeah.
I'm the reason why you're here.
I'm thinking of some of the male clients that I work with, the men that I work with, right? Because they deserve a seat at the table too.
Mm-hmm.
Their perspective needs to be heard. And even though I'm not here in representation of a man, I can tell you from the work that I do with my male clients, it's having to be the good boy, or when the father leaves, abandons the family, is being told, well, you're not the man of the house.
Wow.
No child
Should
should
be
have to step
told.
in and, play that role of
Yeah.
being the man of the house, especially when you're 10 years old
That's so
or
insane.
12. That is not okay because of the loss of identity for that child.
Especially since at 10 years old, what do I know about being a man? So now I have to create a
Right.
version that makes
Yeah.
you happy.
And it even goes further with this expectation that as a man you need to be tough and not show emotions and be the leader of the house, be the leader of your wife or your girlfriend. And this part is emerging for me in this moment, is the
Mm,
fact that when many parental figures walk away from their responsibility as a parent,
mm.
it is often the child that steps in to support the remaining parental
Parent.
figure.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a father that has left, sometimes the boy steps up to take the place of the
The father.
father
Mm-hmm.
and parent the younger siblings. If it's a girl, I'm sorry, if there's the mom that walks away, sometimes the eldest daughter might step up. And I'm not saying that's generally or always the sense, because when my father walked away, I became the man of the house.
Yeah. I'm the
Believe it or
eldest
not.
daughter, and if my father couldn't do it, I did
Right.
it.
I became,
I
and
did it.
I'll never forget that when I was in therapy years ago and in processing with my therapist, it jolted me. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh shit. When my father left, I became the man of the house. No wonder why I was a tomboy.
And I was tough.
I was tough and hardcore because my survival depended on it. I needed to make sure that when my mother was at work, my
Everybody else was
siblings were
surviving.
okay, right? As a
Yeah.
single mom. But thankfully, we had an extended family that stepped in and were very protective of us and supported. But please don't think that if you're a girl, you can't step in and become the man of the house. Because that happens so often for girls, and boys step in and become the mother of the house. I mean, and it robs children of their identity. And these things are often not, we hear, oh, children are parentified, but people don't talk about the fact that whether you're identified as a boy and your mother's not there, sometimes you become the one, the nurturer and the
Mm-hmm.
caretaker. Whether you're a girl and your father's not there, sometimes you become the disciplinarian and the one making sure that your mom's holding it together and everything. So I just never want to speak in general terms. Nothing we say on this podcast is all across the board rule. That would
No.
be very harmful.
Right.
So I just wanted to add that perspective that it's not just these things we're mentioning. This is so complex. It's so
Right.
nuanced, right?
Because I grew up in a two-parent household,
Mm-hmm.
but I still had to do a lot of, because my parents didn't have any male children amongst each
Okay.
other.
So
So
you're the boy.
I'm the boy. I know how to change the oil. I know how to get on the roof and fix the
Yeah.
tile if I needed to. I'm the boy. So when my relationship with my father is different than my sister's relationship with my father.
Mm-hmm.
And so even in a two-parent household, when there's that dynamic still plays out
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
some extent.
Yeah. I love the fact that my mother typically didn't subscribe to gender roles as much.
Mm,
She would tell me if your brother washes the dish, if your sister, if she would tell my brother, if your sister does the dishes, you need to do the dishes.
amen.
If your sister makes the bed, you need to learn how to make the bed.
Hallelujah.
You will not
Be out
come
here.
and think that this is only a girl's role
Right.
because we're so big on enforcing gender roles
Mm-hmm.
that we don't realize something times that that is harmful,
Yes.
and it actually prevents people from becoming interdependent
Mm-hmm.
and independent, and interdependence is what we need. So this whole construct
Very
and
complex.
how society constructs this concept around gender roles, gender identity, sometimes it can lead to massive distortion
Yes.
and a lot of shame. A lot
Right.
of shame, right? Why am I not girly enough? For a long
Mm-hmm.
time, I didn't carry a pocketbook. You cannot get me to wear a dress or carry a pocketbook. It was torture for me.
Trying to just get my nails done because for so long
Right.
I played a role that we had.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one day I was like, to hell with it. I get to wear freaking pants if I want to. I get to be who I am. And I literally had to fight to maintain my sense of self or who
Mm-hmm.
I was becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't always match up with the
It didn't.
expectations that
That's
were
true.
set. So,
Yeah. And that's such an important point to understand, especially since you're saying for a long time it took us a while to get to be who we are. And I think people don't really understand how this concept shows up in adulthood, this distorted sense of self. And so I wanted to name some of the ways that it does show up, such as struggling to say no without feeling any guilt.
mm-hmm.
And that's a hard one because, as I mentioned previously, for us to play a specific role, we have to sacrifice something.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to play the good daughter, sometimes we sacrifice our voice. And so that's how it shows up sometimes for us in adulthood. Then there's this over functioning at work or in relationships just so that we can feel valuable. And that's a big one when it comes to this distorted sense of self because we're now playing this role so that it becomes our role become how we feel loved or valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would make sense for us to play this to overfunction so that we can get that, oh, good job, you're doing such a good job, or oh my gosh, Manila is so valuable because she overworked herself and now she can't handle it and now she's not feeling well, but she shows up every day, she never says no. It's confusing
Mm-hmm.
because then confusion comes up too when ask simple questions like, what do you enjoy? I remember one time you asked me, Murnell, what are you proud of? And I couldn't answer that question because I didn't know what I was proud of because my whole life I was told if these specific things weren't done, you shouldn't be proud of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to answer simple questions like, what are you proud of? Or what do you enjoy? Or
Mm-hmm.
what do you like to do when you're on your downtime? Who
Mm-hmm.
are you?
Mm-hmm.
All of this shows up in our adulthood with this distorted sense of being. Then there's that aspect of we oftentimes find ourselves living in comparison
Mm-hmm.
and measuring what how much we're worth against somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very big on the only person that I compete against is myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because for so long your my value was, oh, did you know that such and such daughter did this? And I'm like,
The
okay.
comparison.
I don't know why such and such daughter did that. And there's this bar that has been set for us to just compare ourselves to other people,
Mm-hmm.
which gives rise to a strong internal critic that is so loud that even when we are successful we feel fraudulent.
Hmm.
When these things take, there's this aspect of when we're living with a distorted sense of being, that internal critic speaks louder than we think it does.
Mm.
not just against us, but against others.
Mm-hmm.
And we become very concerned and tormented
Mm-hmm.
because we're fighting an internal critic that feels wrong, but we can't seem to shut the voice down, so it begins to yell in our ears, and we begin to project it onto others as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of us understand that comes from this distorted sense of being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, talking about this distorted sense of being, another layer also came to mind for me. Do you know,
Mm.
and this is to all of our listeners, do you know that unconsciously
Mm.
we may fiend,
Mm.
right? Or take on behaviors
Mm.
and not realize we're doing it
Yep.
because it was the expectation set for us.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example. Many individuals I work with in their family, they've been viewed as the helpless one.
Mm.
They've been seen as being so helpless because everyone caters to them. Maybe at childhood, they started out with illnesses because when your environment is very stressful as a child, your body experiences that.
Mm-hmm.
You experience it. Your
Yes.
body experiences it. And so oftentimes when a child tends to express that stress, it gets manifest as a lot of respiratory issues, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
illnesses. The family is so busy caretaking,
Mm-hmm.
and what that does is give that child attention. That as the child gets older, the
Yes.
child starts to serve in the role as the sick one, the helpless one, the one that everyone cuddles and cradles because everyone now views that person in that
In
role,
a specific
and the
way.
individual doesn't realize that that is playing into their own sense of being helpless and incapable.
Notice how it wasn't spoken.
Mm-hmm.
It was through action.
Yes.
Your brain picked it
Oh
up.
yeah, yeah.
And I
Oh
think
yeah.
I think it's good to name that
Yes.
because
Yes.
sometimes they don't have to say it.
No.
You just have to see it.
Yes. It's important then to evaluate what is it costing you, the distortion of your sense of being. And maybe you don't have a distorted sense of
Mm-hmm.
being, maybe you don't, and that's great. And if you don't, that's amazing. Let's ensure that you don't get caught in that trap.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're someone who is struggling with trying to figure out your sense of self, or maybe you're in relationship with someone else who struggles with identifying their sense of self confidently, that you at least use this information that we're providing as a resource to support that individual or to support yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understand that when expectations are set for us, we tend to rise to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these expectations are very harmful. Again, this is not across the board or always thing. It's just unconsciously we fall into these roles and don't even realize we're doing it. Oftentimes what I see in relationships is if a partner or a friend is the one who was always there supporting the individual in their moments of crisis,
Mm-hmm.
when the individual has done their work to heal
Yep.
and become someone else, the other individual doesn't know how to relate to them.
Yes.
And sometimes the person who's done the work to heal will regress because they start to feel like, well, I might lose that relationship. Or they might think I'm better than them.
Mm-hmm.
And they may very well regress because now it's they feel like it's easier for them to regress than to challenge the other person to learn this new version of them.
That is such an important point to name, especially because I think as we heal, a lot of us don't understand that people have a sense of they think they know who we are. So as we begin to heal that,
Mm-hmm.
we're challenging their notions of who they think
Absolutely.
they know who we are.
Absolutely.
And with that comes such big emotions.
Yes.
That it does try, if you're not aware of that, you will fall into that cycle of regression.
Mm-hmm.
Because once those emotions shows up, they're challenging this version, this healed version of you. And as you heal, you have to be ready for that challenge to show up.
Yeah, big emotions, and like chronic anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to have on a mask all day and be
Mm-hmm.
performing.
Mm-hmm.
What's typical in individuals who struggle with a distorted sense of self is they tend to have a lot of chronic anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
health issues,
Mm-hmm.
autoimmune diseases,
Yes.
depression,
Yes.
dissociating from the body.
Yes.
Because if you're having to suppress parts of you who want to emerge and be creative and authentic and vulnerable, just so you won't be judged, just so you won't lose relationships you fear you may lose, you continuing to suppress who you are is going to trigger an internal response in the stress hormones and stress system in your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're stifling your own self when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to breathe, and you will suffer for it in the form of illnesses, autoimmune diseases, because your body holds your truth. Your body is the core of your being. Fragmentation, where you feel like, I don't know who I am today. When I'm with my parents, I feel like I shrink into being a little boy or a little girl. When I'm with friends, I'm one person. When I'm at work, I'm one person. You get to show up being different versions of yourself, but if the version of you you're being was created, prescribed by other people, then you will feel lost and confused and not sure who you are meant to be.
I have such a funny story about that. I mean, I guess it's not that funny, but when I first came to this country
Mm-hmm.
and I went to school for the first time in this country, I remember walking with the social worker as she or the principal, whoever it was, as they gave us the tour of the
Mm-hmm.
school. And she goes, "Are you going to be excited, Murnell?" And I looked around. I was like, "Who's Murnell?" Because
Mm-hmm.
in my home life, in all my life, I
Mm-hmm.
have been another name because
Mm-hmm.
I have another name.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked, I was like, "Who's Murnell?"
Wow.
So they all laughed at me. And my mother goes, "That's your actual name."
Right.
And I said, "What? My actual name is Murnell." I was
Mm-hmm.
7 years old when I learned my actual name was Murnell.
Wow.
So then I was two different persons. I
That
was
must have
Murnell
confused you.
at
Uh-huh.
school and in the world, but
Uh-huh.
at home I was somebody else.
Uh,
And that was
okay.
very confusing because I didn't know how to be both person and one.
Right, right, right.
So that it does show up that way, that fragmentation.
Yes, and it leads to lack of self-trust. You're constantly second
Yes,
guessing yourself.
yes.
Constantly second guessing self. You know what? I am very thankful that I learned earlier on that I get to create the versions of me that I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I figured it out, but that was the most empowering thing for me to
Mm-hmm.
realize that
That's awesome.
you don't look for who you want to be. I hear people say, I'm trying to find myself.
Mm.
You're not going to find
You're not gonna
yourself if you
find
keep
it.
looking.
Mm-hmm.
You create
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And it starts with you taking a look at values you want to embody. It starts with you taking a look at how you want to show up in your world,
Mm-hmm.
the world.
Mm-hmm.
It means questioning things that you believe and what you were taught. Where did they come from? Do I believe in this? It means that you have to be okay with doing this uncomfortable thing
Mm.
of evaluating who you are and the things you believe, and were they given to you, or did you slowly acquire them and based on the things that you want to prioritize in your life. So beginning to reclaim your being or develop your being means that you need to question it.
Yeah.
You need to be bold enough to question it.
Yeah.
Is this who I want to be? How I look at things? Is this mine or was it given to
Yeah.
me? Reconnecting with your body, start noticing when things feel tight or heavy, or when you feel like you're being silenced. Notice how you're breathing. Is it labor intensive? Do you feel overwhelmed by being you?
Mm.
If being you feels like a task,
Mm.
then you're being the you someone else
Just want
told
to
you to
be.
be.
Hmm.
Because being me is so much fun. I love how silly I can be. I love how endearing I can be at times. And that comes naturally for me. But if being me starts to feel like a weighted burden, right? I'm not saying that being yourself oftentimes won't bring discomfort for others. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's not because you're uncomfortable with being
But
who you
you.
are. It's because they're uncomfortable with having to accept that you are who you are. But if you are struggling to be you because you want to please them, then that is a problem. Micro choices. Start making small choices.
That was where I started.
Start making small choices. I love kids, right? I love to watch kids. There's nothing more fascinating than watching kids. And I have my cousin, she's 3 years old, and we're just talking, my aunt and I. And when we went to the islands, I think I maybe shared this before. My mom gave her two dresses. The first one was pink and very pretty and lacy, and the second one was blue. And so when my mom gave her the second one, she paused and she frowned and she says, I don't think Rhea wants this dress. Rhea doesn't like this dress, you know? She's very vocal for a 3-year-old.
She's talking about herself in the third
Yes, she was talking about herself in the third person. And I laughed hysterically. Right? And everyone laughed, but we didn't realize that what she was doing was modeling how we need to be as humans. And my aunt shared with me over the weekend that she started school. She started school now, and she got an injury in the eye. And when she went home and she told her mom, she said Rhea hit Rhea with the gate in Rhea's eye.
I love
and and her mom was like,
so you hit yourself in the eye.
you know, at first it was kind of tricky to figure out what she was saying, but she was saying Rhea hurt Rhea. And I love that because at every step of the way, she is pausing to check in to see what she wants and how she feels. And she'll tell you, no, Rhea is unhappy. Rhea is sad. Or Rhea is happy now because her mom makes space for her to take up space and be fully herself. So she feels free to check in with herself and say no. You know, and she's learned to speak because she's always around adults. She's the only child there, so she's very precocious, very mature for her age. But that's how we need to be as adult. We need to check in with ourselves. So when people ask me things, I'll pause and go, no, that doesn't feel good. No, I don't want that. Nikki doesn't want that. Nikki doesn't like that.
I like that.
And it may seem weird to others, but it's not weird. You are the protector of yourself.
Yes.
So start with asking, what do I want right now? Do I feel safe? Does this feel comfortable for me? How is this going to benefit me, or how is this going to impact me? Practice making small choices. Also, surround yourself with people who align with your values. I pride myself in having friends who are very free thinkers. They are okay with telling me no, and they're okay with telling me you're full of crap, and they're okay with calling me out, and they're okay with hearing it back from me. Surround yourself with truth tellers.
Yes.
Because if all you're surrounding yourself with are people who are maintaining this facade, and by truth tellers, I don't mean people who are going to demean and belittle you.
There's a difference. There's
No.
two kind of truths.
Yes, you want people who are going to be. I used to say I'm going to be bluntly honest, but that's so harmful.
That's harmful. Yeah.
Be compassionately honest.
Yes.
How
Say that
about
again?
let's be compassionately honest.
Yes.
And you yourself have to be willing and open to hearing uncomfortable truths about yourself, your behaviors. And if you don't want to see your own truths, you won't want to hear it from anybody else.
Yup.
Just so you know, if you don't want to confront truths about yourself, you won't want to hear it from anybody else.
And that is such a big thing, because I got to that place when I was like, I need to start hearing some uncomfortable truth about who I am.
Yeah.
And start making my little micro choices and start understanding, using that mirror for myself.
Yeah.
And that's what really helped me change.
Yeah.
And begin to be my authentic version of who I am.
And I'm going to share a journal prompt with you all. I want you to write down all the roles you've had, all the roles you've served in: the good girl, the good boy, the protector, the overachiever, the strong one, the cool
The
guy.
savior.
Yeah. What would be left if you set these roles down? If we were to take away all the roles you've been serving in, who would you be? Who would you be if we took those roles away from you for a day? All the roles, the professional, the successful daughter, the successful, who would you be? If you can't answer me and you can't answer yourself, then it's time for you to really pause and reflect and ask, who am I at heart? Who do I want to create myself to be? What values do I hold near and dear to my heart? Because values are so important. And I'm going to give an example. I am someone that values support. Support is a very important value for me. I believe that as human beings, we are meant to be interdependent with each other and functioning. And I value community. So because I value community and I value support, that drove my decision to become a therapist. This is why it's important to know what your values are. Now, there are times when things that you once valued no longer serves you and you have to revisit it, right? So my family valued religion. They value religion so much that they were willing to overlook some things that were very harmful. And I was the same way because it's how I was raised. And after questioning and questioning, I realized that there are many religious practices that are very oppressive, are very harmful, and leave people in fear. So I invite you to question things that you value. If you don't know what you value, just go online to Google and type values list and go through it and circle things that you value and then ask, was this a value that was imposed on me, or are these things that I myself care about? And how can I use this to guide how I show up for myself and how I show up in the world? And I'm inviting you too, as you're reflecting on that, to just sigh, just a sigh of just relief. Because this conversation can be very shattering for some, right? It forces you to take a look at your identity. So just sigh, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, if no one else's opinion mattered to me, if I wasn't so concerned about how people see me and feel about me, whether it's your mother, your father, your family, your friends, who would you allow yourself to be? If no one else's opinion mattered, if you didn't care about what other people think about you, who you are at your core, who would you allow yourself to be? And let whatever comes up for you, even if it's a tiny whisper, let that small voice be the beginning of you reclaiming your true self in a space that is true for you. So I am inviting you to make space to do that, because it is time for you to show up for you in your own life. And maybe you are already showing up for yourself in your life in multiple other ways. I commend you for that. I'm inviting you to do a check-in, though, in those areas that feel heavy and overwhelming and not really you, and do a check-in. If you didn't care what anybody thinks, how would you move through those spaces? How would you be functioning? Who would you allow yourself to be?
Wow. That's beautiful. And as we close with that amazing prompt, I just want to remind us that distortion is not our destiny. It is a story that was handed down to us, and we have the power to rewrite it.
Yep.
We do have that power. And all we have to do is make the decision to use it.
Mm-hmm.
All we have to do is start to put ourselves and put ourselves in these little spaces to make little decisions, and the little ones add up, and the next thing we know, we're doing it.
And might I add one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I heard this years ago and I never forgot it. I heard someone say, you, us, we as humans, we are one thought and one decision, one choice away from healing, growing, or learning. We're one thought, one decision away from healing and growing. Because what you're thinking might be keeping you stuck, helpless, and deflated, or what you're believing or choosing to believe will catapult you toward healing, growing, and learning differently so that you can choose the life you want for you.
I love it. With that being said, thank you for joining us today in this episode. I hope it resonated with you guys. Share it with somebody who might be carrying the weight of distortion in silence. And also share the rest of our podcast if with somebody who you think might benefit from it. And if you're looking for resources, you can go on our website, daretoemerge.com. We have tons of blog posts that will help you guys. We have videos on our YouTube channels that will help you guys. Check them out. And if you're in the Fort Lauderdale, Oakland area, Broward County area, look on the website, see if there's a therapist you want to work with, and give us a phone call. And with that, don't miss our next episode, The Courage to Heal, where we talk about what happens when the world teaches you to abandon yourself and how to finally come home. And I want to give this message to you guys. As I close, I want to remind you guys to be kind to yourself because you deserve it.